Thank you, Madam Chair. General Keane, let me get back to you for just a second. If you get down to, say, 10,000 or fewer U.S. troops, I've heard this, and I don't. If you could tell me how accurate this is, do you get to a point where basically those personnel are, for the most part, protecting themselves, protecting itself, kind of its own force protection and things like that, and that you can't really perform any functions outside that are going to be particularly helpful to U.S. interests in Afghanistan? Is that correct?
Well, certainly I do agree with that. I mean, numbers have a certain quality all of their own, and when you rationalize, what those numbers should be, it has to be on the tasks and the missions that are required to be accomplished by a residual force. And if you permit the sizing of the force to be essentially numbers driven and not mission and task driven, then you're just pulling the guts out of what you're trying to accomplish. Right. And I think if you will put arbitrary numbers on the table without looking at the tasks, the military can definitely provide task, purpose, and numbers assigned to that task and purpose. And if you're going to bring down the numbers, you have to understand what are we losing as a result of those reduction in numbers, and we should be honest with ourselves about that. And I think it's a serious degradation in mission capability when you drive those numbers down like that. We should know what is the loss of that, and not just tell those 10,000, make do and do the best you can.
Thank you. Thank you, General. Dr. Kagan, let me turn to you if I can. I remember the last time I was in Iraq, it was maybe 6 months before the agreement with Iraq fell apart. And I remember being in various military briefings and talking with Iraqis and government leaders over there. Everybody at that point assumed that there would be a residual, pretty significant residual U.S. force there on the ground. And I and many other people were ultimately shocked when it was just announced pretty much, we can't reach an agreement, everybody's coming out. Now, when that happened, there were obviously consequences as a result of that. Could you touch on some of the consequences we've seen in Iraq, and what should that teach us about what we're actually talking about here with respect to Afghanistan, which isn't too late?
Thank you, Congressman. The consequences in Iraq have been absolutely devastating. We've seen the reconstitution of al-Qaeda in Iraq in most of the safe havens from which it had been operating before the surge and subsequent operations cleared it out. It is now conducting car bomb operations at the same level as it had been in mid-2007. We've seen Shia sectarian militias remobilized, and now some of them are being brought into the Iraqi security forces. We're seeing increased sectarian killing, and of course all of this is in the context of the Syrian war as well. If we pull out of Afghanistan, the consequences may or may not ensue as rapidly as they did in Iraq, but I believe that they will ensue very much along those lines, because like the Iraqi security forces, the Afghan national security forces were not created, have not been established in such a way that they can continue to operate independently without any support.
Thank you. With about a little over a minute that I've got left, let me turn to Ms. Curtis and Dr. Biddle. We really haven't touched too much on India, which is right in the region there and a key player. Could you discuss briefly India's role in all of this relative to the future of Afghanistan and Pakistan to some degree? What role have they played? What role would you expect them to play? And I got about a minute, so Ms. Curtis, maybe I'll give you 30 seconds, and Dr. Biddle about 30. It's only the second most populous country on earth, and let's talk about that for 30 seconds.
Okay, can I quickly just add that when we're talking about troop numbers in Afghanistan, obviously that decision will have an impact on Pakistan, a nuclear-armed state. So we're not just talking about the Afghanistan state, but we're talking about the entire region and the impact on the entire region. As far as India goes, India has played a helpful role in Afghanistan. They have provided assistance. They have built roads, power stations. They have helped support the nascent democratic process there. So India's goals in Afghanistan match those of the U.S. in not wanting the Taliban to retake the country. The problem is that Pakistan is paranoid about any role that India has in Afghanistan. Even if the Indian role is helping with the economy, Pakistan sees any increased influence that India has in Afghanistan as detrimental to Pakistan's interest. But as I said, I don't think we can play into Pakistan's hands and, ask India to pull back from Afghanistan just to appease Pakistan. I think the only way to reduce the Pakistani paranoia is to encourage better Indo-Pakistani relations.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I'd ask unanimous consent for 30 seconds to Dr. Biddle to
Without
complete the thought.
I agree with most of what my colleague said. I'm very skeptical about the prospects for Indo-Pakistani rapprochement anytime soon. And I think in the absence of that, the way I would prefer we look at India's role in Afghanistan is as a part of a strategy for bringing about a settlement to the war that will necessarily require Pakistani agreement.
Thank
Whatever
you.
marginal
I'm so
improvement.
sorry, Mr. Chabot, but we have so many.
You had 6 seconds left.
Okay, go ahead. I can hear Mr.
Don't
Connolly
let
now.
marginal Indian help in Afghanistan overturn relations with Pakistan.
Thank you very much.